Chapter 2, The Anomaly. As if summoned by her words, Aris's personal communicator chimed softly against her wrist. A priority message from her research director at the Institute for Advanced Gerontology. She glanced at the preview text and felt her breath catch. Urgent consultation required. Asteroid belt mining incident. Subjects exhibiting unprecedented physiological adaptations. Departure for Ceres Station approved for 0800 tomorrow. Aris looked up to find her great-great-grandmother watching her with those disconcertingly sharp eyes. Go. Lydia said simply. Some mysteries, as I said, solve themselves. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't be there when they do. The next morning, as Aris's transport lifted away from Earth's gravity well and began its journey toward the outer system, she carried with her the memory of that evening. The warmth of 5 generations gathered in celebration. The gentle wisdom of extended time. The profound peace of a world that had conquered its greatest enemy. But she also carried something else, a growing certainty that their victory might have come at a cost they were only beginning to understand. Through the viewport, Earth dwindled behind her. A blue jewel in the void where 16 billion souls lived longer. Wiser lives than any generation before them. Ahead lay the asteroid belt. And whatever strange new chapter in human evolution awaited her discovery there. In her carry-on, sealed in a biosecure container, lay tissue samples from 12 miners who had developed functional gills at depths where no fish had ever swum. Breathing fluids that no mammal should have been able to process. All of them over 140 years old. All of them products of humanity's greatest triumph. All of them, perhaps, harbingers of something that would make that triumph seem like merely the first movement in a much longer, stranger symphony. The medical bay on Ceres Station smelled of ozone and perfluorocarbon. Dr. Aris Thorne stood outside the isolation unit, watching through triple-sealed transparent aluminum as 12 human beings breathed liquid as naturally as fish. Started 3 weeks ago, explained Dr. Cha Wei, Ceres Station's chief medical officer. His voice carried the particular exhaustion of someone who had been fielding questions he couldn't answer. Gradual at first. They complained of breathing difficulties during their shifts in the deep mines. You know how thin the atmosphere gets down there. Then Martinez here, he gestured to a woman floating peacefully in the nearest tank, was found unconscious in shaft 7. Nearly 2 kilometers down. When we brought her up, she was gasping like she was drowning in our air. Aris studied Martinez through the transparent wall. The woman appeared to be in her mid-60s. Though her records showed she was 143 years old. Her skin had taken on a faint bluish tinge. Delicate slits along her neck opening and closing in a rhythm that was unmistakably respiratory. All 12 miners are from the same work group? Aris asked. Deep shaft specialists. They've been working the low-gravity, high-pressure zones for decades. It's actually been an advantage. The fluid breathing allows them to go deeper than anyone thought possible. Production in their sectors is up 30%. And their ages? Cha consulted his tablet. Range from 139 to 147. All long-term Khronos recipients. Of course. First generation to receive it as children. Aris felt a familiar tingle at the base of her skull, the sensation she'd learned to recognize as her subconscious making connections her rational mind hadn't yet processed. I'd like to examine Martinez first. Full workup, genetic, metabolic, neurological. Already prepared. Cha said, leading her toward the examination chamber adjacent to the tanks. Fair warning though, she's different. They all are. Not just physically. The examination chamber had been modified with a perfluorocarbon circulation system that allowed Martinez to remain submerged while Aris conducted her tests. The miner floated peacefully, her newly developed gills fluttering as she processed the oxygenated fluid. "Can you hear me, Elena?" Aris asked through the communication system. Martinez's eyes opened, darker than they had been in her personnel photos. Aris noted, and focused on her with startling intensity. When she spoke, her voice carried a liquid quality that had nothing to do with the medium she was breathing. "Dr. Thorne," she said, "we've been waiting for you." The use of "we" sent another chill through Aris. "How are you feeling?" "Complete," Martinez replied without hesitation. "For the first time in my life." "Complete. Do you understand what I mean?" Aris began her preliminary scans, running sensors over Martinez's submerged form while recording everything. "Tell me about the changes you've experienced." "It started with dreams," Martinez said, her eyes tracking the ceiling as if watching patterns only she could see. "Dreams of water, of depths, of togetherness. At first, I thought it was just the isolation of deep shaft work getting to me. But then the others started having the same dreams." "The same dreams?" "Exactly the same. We would compare notes during breaks. And it was like we were all visiting the same place. A vast ocean. Darker and colder than anything on Earth. And we weren't alone there." Aris's scanner beeped, displaying Martinez's genetic profile. She had to run the analysis twice to believe what she was seeing. Sections of the woman's genome that had been dormant for her entire life had activated. Ancient sequences that predated human evolution by hundreds of millions of years were expressing proteins that shouldn't exist in any mammalian system. "Elena, I need to ask you about your family history. Specifically, any unusual traits in your relatives over 120. Martinez's expression shifted, becoming more alert. "My grandmother developed what the doctors called acquired hyperkeratosis around 125, unusual hair growth all over her body. She spent a fortune on laser treatments. My great-uncle, he died at 138. But in his final years, he kept insisting he could feel the emotions of everyone around him. Made family gatherings uncomfortable." Aris made notes, her hand moving automatically while her mind raced through the implications. "And the other minors? Do they have similar family histories?" "We've talked about it. Yes. The patterns are consistent." Martinez turned to look directly at Aris, and for a moment, the intensity of her gaze was almost predatory. "Doctor, do you know what neoteny is?" The question caught Aris off guard. It was an obscure evolutionary biology term, not something she would expect from a minor. The retention of juvenile characteristics into adulthood. Some theorists believe it's one of the key factors in human evolution. My great-uncle studied biology before he was enlisted into the mining operation. In his final years, when his sensitivity was at its peak, he became obsessed with the idea that humans were essentially juvenile apes. That our large brains, our reduced body hair, our extended childhood, all of it was the result of genetic switches that kept us from fully maturing. Aris felt her pulse quicken. What did he conclude? That we were incomplete. That there was a whole stage of human development that had been postponed. And that Khronos might have done more than cure cancer. Martinez's gills fluttered more rapidly. He died before he could prove it, but he left notes. calculations, predictions about what might happen to people who lived long enough for those genetic switches to finally activate. The examination chamber fell silent except for the gentle circulation of the perfluorocarbon system. Aris stared at Martinez, her scientific mind racing through possibilities that seemed simultaneously impossible and inevitable. "I'll need to see those notes," she said finally. "We hoped you would." Martinez smiled, and Aris noticed that her teeth had developed subtle changes, becoming more pointed, more suited to an aquatic environment. "They're in my personal effects. But Dr. Thorne, there's something else you should know." "What?" "We're not the first. There have been others, scattered across the outer colonies. Usually dismissed as environmental adaptations or equipment malfunctions. But if you know what to look for." Martinez paused, her gills fluttering in what might have been excitement. "There are underwater mining operations on Europa. Officially, they use robotic systems for the deep ocean work. But there are rumors of human workers who can operate at crushing depths without suits. Workers who prefer the company of their own kind and rarely return to the surface stations." Aris felt the pieces of a vast puzzle beginning to align in her mind. "How do you know this?" "Because they dream with us now," Martinez said simply. "In the deep water dreams, we're not alone. There are others, calling to us from the dark oceans of distant moons. And they're further along."